The first time my daughter realized she was unwanted, she did not cry. That is the part that still wakes me up sometimes. Not the silence at the Thanksgiving table. Not my nephew laughing. Not even my mother sitting there with a wine glass in her hand while my children stared at empty spaces where gifts should have been. It was the way Lily folded her drawing in half. Carefully. Quietly. Like she already understood that love could be taken back. Children should not know how to do that. My name is Autumn Townsend. I am 33 years old, and for most of my life I believed that if I worked hard enough, stayed polite enough, forgave enough, then eventually my family would love me the way they loved each other. I was wrong. Some families do not reject you all at once. They do it slowly. A missed birthday. A forgotten invitation. A silence after you speak. An empty chair where your children should have mattered. And sometimes the final wound is so small from the outside that nobody else understands why it breaks you. For us, it was 3 silver gift bags. The strange thing about betrayal is that it rarely begins with cruelty. It begins with hope. Hope is what kept me driving back to my parents' house every holiday after my divorce. Hope is what made me keep answering my mother's calls. Hope is what made me believe my children deserved grandparents even if I no longer felt like someone's daughter. I grew up in Millfield, Ohio, the kind of town where people wave at funerals and gossip in church parking lots. Population around 12,000. 1 high school. 1 grocery store. 1 main street where everyone knows which marriages are failing before the couples do. My father, Frank Townsend, spent 30 years working county road maintenance. Quiet man. Soft voice. The kind of person who apologized to furniture after bumping into it. My mother, Diane, was the opposite. Diane was polished, organized, admired. At church, people described her as gracious. At home, she ruled conversations the way conductors lead orchestras. Every sentence, every topic, every emotional temperature in the room moved according to her hand. My older sister Monica learned early that the easiest way to survive our mother was to become her favorite. Monica did everything correctly. Married rich. Stayed married. Had beautiful children. Hosted Christmas brunches with matching napkins and cinnamon centerpieces. By 35, she lived in a giant stone house with a 3-car garage and a kitchen larger than my apartment. I took another path. I went to culinary school in Columbus because baking was the only thing that ever made me feel calm. Dough made sense. Sugar made sense. Recipes had rules. If you gave something enough warmth and patience, it rose. People were harder. I married Kyle when I was 24. At first, he seemed dependable. Charming. Protective. It took me 3 years to realize control and protection can wear the same face. Kyle tracked expenses. Questioned every purchase. Got irritated when I visited friends. Once, after I came home 20 minutes late from the grocery store, he asked me to hand over the receipt so he could check timing. The day I discovered he had removed my name from our joint checking account without telling me, something inside me finally cracked. Lily was 3 years old. Sam was 5 months. I remember sitting on the bathroom floor after finding out, holding Sam against my chest while Kyle slept in the next room, and thinking, if I stay here long enough, my children will think this is what love looks like. So I left. My parents never forgave me for that. Not openly. Not dramatically. They simply began loving me less. The punishment arrived in layers. At first it was subtle. My mother stopped calling every Sunday. My father's visits became rare. Family photos online stopped including me unless I happened to be standing in the background. Then came the comparisons. Monica's children received elaborate birthday parties. Professional cakes. Bounce houses. Custom decorations. When her youngest turned 7, my mother spent $400 on decorations alone and mentioned it proudly over dinner, like she had funded a hospital wing. That same month, my son Sam turned 4. A $20 Target gift card arrived 3 days late in the mail. Children notice everything adults pretend they do not. Lily started asking questions around then. Why does Grandma always go to Tyler's soccer games? Why does Grandma hug Emma longer? Why do we always visit them but they never visit us? I tried to protect my children from the truth because that is what mothers do. We stand between our children and the storm until our bodies give out. But some storms seep through anyway. After my divorce, I rented a tiny 2-bedroom apartment on Oak Street and started over from nothing. I had one used KitchenAid mixer bought off Facebook Marketplace, a folding table, a cottage food license, and recipes developed during sleepless nights while my children slept beside each other in the next room. I named the bakery Townsend Sweets, salted caramel apple pies, brown butter pecan tarts, lemon lavender scones. Every recipe mine. Every flavor built through trial and failure and exhaustion. Those recipes carried us. When orders started coming in, I cried in the kitchen after the kids went to bed because for the first time since my divorce, I felt capable again. Not rescued. Not saved. Capable. But success did not impress my family. To my mother, my bakery was a hobby. A phase. A thing I was doing until I found stability again. By stability, she meant another husband. Then Thanksgiving came. The morning began beautifully. That is what makes painful memories cruel. They almost always begin with hope. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and brown butter. Sam sat on the counter licking caramel from a wooden spoon. Lily wrapped a handprint turkey drawing for Grandma using printer paper and tape. She spent 20 minutes writing. Love, Lily, age 8. Perfect, careful cursive. I remember looking at her and thinking maybe this year would be different. Maybe my mother would see them. Really see them. When we arrived at my parents' house, Monica's Lexus was already parked outside, beside Craig's BMW. Inside, everything looked perfect. Candles glowing. Turkey steaming. Football playing softly in the other room. The dining table was fully set with handwritten name cards. Then I noticed the gift bags. Silver. Sparkly. Placed beside Tyler's plate. Emma's plate. Bryce's plate. Nothing beside Lily's. Nothing beside Sam's. At first I convinced myself it meant nothing. Maybe theirs were hidden. Maybe more gifts were coming later. Hope makes fools of women like me. Dinner continued while my mother praised Monica's kitchen renovation, Tyler's soccer team, Craig's dental practice expansion. When I mentioned Townsend Sweets being accepted into the spring farmers market, my mother interrupted before I finished speaking. Frank, pass the gravy. Just like that. Dismissed. I watched Lily tracing the edge of her placemat while glancing at the silver bags. Children noticed silence, too. Then came dessert. My mother stood and lifted her wine glass. Before pie, she announced, Grandpa and I want to recognize the grandkids who made us proud this year. The room went still. Tyler got a gaming headset. Emma got a jewelry-making kit. Bryce got a giant Lego set. Then my mother sat back down. That was it. No gifts for my children. No explanation. No acknowledgement. Just emptiness. Sam leaned toward me and whispered, Where's ours, Mama? I could not answer. Because the answer was too ugly to say aloud. Your grandmother wanted you to feel small. Lily slowly slid her handprint turkey drawing back into her jacket pocket. That movement shattered me more than anything else. She understood. At 8 years old, my daughter understood humiliation. Then Tyler laughed. Guess they didn't earn one. Nobody corrected him. Not Monica. Not Craig. Not my father. My mother sipped wine. I remember staring at her face, waiting for guilt. Regret. Anything. There was nothing. Only satisfaction. Like she believed she had taught me a lesson. And suddenly I understood. This was never about gifts. This was punishment. Punishment for divorcing Kyle. Punishment for independence. Punishment for not crawling back into the shape my family preferred. They used my children to do it because hurting me directly was no longer effective enough. Something cold settled inside me then. Not rage. Clarity. I stood up calmly. Lily. Sam. Get your coats. My mother looked annoyed. Autumn, sit down. You're overreacting. I looked at her for a long moment. No, I said quietly. I'm finally reacting the correct amount. I grabbed my untouched pie from the counter. 45 minutes sitting there. Nobody had even cut it. That hurt too. Not because of the pie. Because it represented every invisible thing I had brought into that family for years. Effort. Care. Grace. All untouched. My father half stood from his chair. Come on, Autumn. It's Thanksgiving. I looked directly at him. Not for us. Then we left. The drive home took 22 minutes. Sam fell asleep quickly. Children are merciful that way. Their hearts shut down before pain overwhelms them. But Lily stayed awake, staring out the window. When we pulled into our driveway, she asked the question that finally broke me. Mama, why doesn't Grandma like us? There are moments in motherhood where you realize the truth will wound your child, no matter how gently you package it. I turned off the engine and sat there in the darkness. Grandma is confused about what love is, I whispered. And that's not your fault. Inside the apartment, I tucked Sam under a blanket on the couch and stood staring at my phone. Missed calls flooded in almost immediately. Mom. Dad. Monica. Then texts. You're being dramatic. It was just gifts. Your mother is crying. Funny how the people who hurt you always center their own pain afterward. I opened the family group chat and typed, "Don't invite us again. We're not your joke." Then after a pause, "Your gift is on the way." At the time, I did not even know what I meant. But some part of me already understood something had ended forever. The next morning, my mother sent a long explanation claiming the gifts were based on achievement. Tyler made honor roll. Emma won a spelling bee. Bryce got a citizenship award. The gifts were supposed to motivate Lily and Sam. Sam was 5 years old. His biggest achievement that year was learning to zip his own jacket. I stared at the message in disbelief. Then another text arrived from Monica. If your kids were involved in more activities, maybe they would have gotten something too. I read that sentence 5 times. Because cruelty from strangers hurts differently than cruelty from family. Strangers wound your confidence. Family wounds your memory, your identity, your sense of belonging in the world. That winter, things got uglier. My mother began spreading her version of events through church circles and community groups. According to her, I had abandoned Thanksgiving over a misunderstanding. I was keeping the grandchildren away. I was unstable after my divorce. Small-town gossip spreads like smoke. Quietly. Everywhere. Customers started canceling bakery orders. One woman texted, "I just don't want to get involved in family conflict." I realized then that my mother was not simply trying to guilt me. She was trying to economically pressure me back into obedience. That realization changed something fundamental inside me. Because hurting me was one thing. Threatening my children's stability was another. Then Monica launched her own bakery. Lawford Kitchen. Same menu. Same recipes. Same products. My recipes. She even copied my salted caramel apple pie exactly, then posted online. A family recipe passed down through generations. I nearly laughed when I read it because our grandmother barely cooked. She made Jell-O salads and bought dinner rolls from Kroger. I built that recipe over 14 failed attempts in culinary school. 14. I still had the notebook. That was when I stopped feeling guilty. Guilt survives only while you believe the other person might still care about fairness. Once that illusion dies, clarity arrives. I began documenting everything. Recipes. Receipts. Instagram timestamps. Customer messages. Then Patty entered the story fully. Everyone deserves someone like Patty in their life. She owned the flower shop downtown. 58 years old. Texas accent. Zero tolerance for manipulation. After hearing what happened at Thanksgiving, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Honey, cruelty dressed as parenting is still cruelty." Nobody had ever said it that plainly before. Not therapists. Not friends. Her certainty steadied me. Then came the screenshots. God. Those screenshots. Patty's daughter accidentally received screenshots from a private family group chat called Planning Committee. Members. My mother. My father. Monica. The messages were dated 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. Get gift bags for the 3 kids, not Autumn's. She needs consequences. Craig can get the headsets wholesale. This will motivate her. Then after I walked out, she'll come crawling back by Christmas. I sat in Patty's flower shop reading those messages while surrounded by lilies and eucalyptus and cold water buckets. Everything inside me went numb. Because hope finally died completely that day. It had been planned. My children's humiliation had been coordinated like a business meeting. Not impulsive. Not accidental. Deliberate. That was the moment I stopped trying to save my family. Instead, I started protecting mine. I hired an attorney named Rachel Kim. She reviewed my evidence quietly for almost 30 minutes before finally saying, "This isn't competition. It's appropriation." Those words mattered. For years, my family had minimized everything I created. My bakery, my motherhood, my survival. Rachel treated my work like it deserved legal protection. I nearly cried in her office. When Monica filed a trademark application overlapping my bakery products, Rachel immediately opposed it using 2 years of documentation proving prior use. Every receipt I had saved became a weapon. Every late night became evidence. There is something deeply healing about documentation after gaslighting. Proof restores sanity. The farmers' market confrontation happened in March. Opening day. Cold morning. String lights overhead. Patty's sunflowers beside my booth. Lily helped me arrange pie slices. She wore an oversized apron tied twice around her waist. Monica's booth sat 3 rows away with gold packaging and expensive signage funded by Craig's money. At first, we ignored each other. Then customers started noticing the identical products. These taste exactly the same. Because they were. Around mid-morning, my parents arrived. My mother hugged Monica dramatically in front of everyone. "There's my girl." Not one glance toward me or my children. 40 feet away and invisible again. But this time invisibility no longer hurt. Because I had finally stopped measuring my worth through their eyes. A woman from the church approached my booth and quietly asked, "Your mother said Monica started this business first. Is that true?" I handed her the laminated timeline Rachel made. Towns and Sweets. Established October 2023. Lawford Kitchen. Established January 2026. 23 months apart. The woman stared at it a long time before whispering, "Lord have mercy." Then people started talking. Quietly at first. Then openly. Truth spreads slower than gossip, but it walks with stronger legs. Finally, Monica approached my booth. "You need to stop telling people I copied you." "I haven't told anyone anything," I replied calmly. "I just brought records." Then she made the mistake people make when lies collapse. She got emotional. "You've always been jealous of me," she snapped. "You couldn't keep a husband and now you're trying to ruin." She stopped because she realized people were listening. I opened Rachel's evidence folder on the table. Receipts. Recipe notebooks. Licenses. Time-stamped posts. One by one. I did not yell. Did not insult her. I simply laid out the truth. Then I placed the screenshots from planning committee on top. The crowd went silent. My mother's face drained completely white. For the first time in my life, Diane Townsend looked small. Not powerful. Not admired. Just small. She whispered, "I just wanted you to need us again." That sentence hit harder than anything else. Because it was honest. She had confused dependence with love. Control with closeness. If I succeeded without her, then she no longer knew who she was as a mother. But instead of learning how to love differently, she tried to break me back into shape. And when that failed, she targeted my children. My mother looked at me in front of that entire crowd and said, "None of this would have happened if you had come to Christmas." There it was again. Obedience. Always obedience. Love in my family had conditions. Silence. Compliance. Submission. And I was finally done paying for it. Deborah, the market coordinator, confirmed publicly that my licensing predated Monica's by nearly 2 years and that county officials would review the overlap. Monica packed her booth within an hour. Craig barely looked at her. Tyler avoided eye contact entirely. My parents left separately. My father trailing behind my mother like always. Then something happened I never expected. People lined up at my booth. Not because of drama. Because truth changes how people taste things. Customers stayed. Talked. Asked about my recipes. Asked about culinary school. Asked about my children. For the first time in years, I felt visible in a way that had nothing to do with my family. Lily had been quietly drawing during the entire confrontation. When the crowd finally dispersed, she held up a handmade sign. Towns and Sweets. We earned it. I burst into tears right there behind the booth. Not because we won. Because my daughter finally understood something I had spent my entire life learning too late. Your worth does not come from people who refuse to see it. That evening, I left the family group chat permanently. Blocked my mother. Blocked Monica. I kept my father's number unblocked, though I did not know why at the time. Maybe grief leaves windows open long after love leaves the room. Months passed. Business improved. The trademark opposition succeeded. My customer base doubled. But the real healing happened quietly. In ordinary moments. Saturday mornings at the farmer's market. Sam licking caramel from spoons. Lily helping stamp napkins. Peace returned slowly, like sunlight after a storm. Then one afternoon in April, my father showed up unexpectedly at the market. Alone. That mattered. He stood awkwardly beside the pie table holding his old baseball cap in both hands. "I didn't know if you'd let me come," he said. I stared at him for a long moment. He looked older. Smaller somehow. "What do you want, Dad?" He swallowed hard. "To apologize." Simple words. No excuses. No blaming Mom. No misunderstandings. Just apology. I waited. "I should have stopped it," he said quietly. "At Thanksgiving. Before Thanksgiving. A long time before that." My throat tightened unexpectedly. Because accountability sounds different from manipulation. Manipulation explains. Accountability admits. He looked at Lily arranging napkins. "She looks scared of me now," he whispered. And there it was. The true consequence. Not drama. Not public embarrassment. Distance. Children naturally move toward people who feel safe. The moment they stop doing that, something sacred has already broken. "I can't fix this for you," I told him. "I know. You watched her hurt us for years." "I know. You said nothing." His eyes filled with tears then. "I know." For the first time in my life, my father stopped hiding behind silence. And strangely enough, that mattered more than any dramatic speech could have. I let him buy a pie. That was all. No hugs. No promises. No reunion. Healing is not forgetting. Boundaries are not cruelty. People confuse those things all the time. He started visiting the market occasionally after that. Always respectful. Always careful. He never asked to bring my mother. I think deep down he finally understood the truth. Access to my children was no longer automatic. It had to be earned. Diane never came. Not once. Sometimes I heard updates through town gossip. She stopped attending certain church events after the farmer's market incident. Apparently, several women confronted her privately about the Thanksgiving story after learning the truth. Monica's bakery faded quietly within months. No dramatic collapse. No revenge fantasy. Just reality. Without stolen identity and family narrative holding it up, there wasn't much left underneath. I thought I would feel victorious. Instead, I mostly felt tired. Because losing illusions is exhausting even when the illusions hurt you. That May, I created a new tradition. Town's Thanksgiving. No obligation. No performance. No emotional traps disguised as family rituals. Just gratitude. Patty and Doug came. Dan from the honey stand came. A few loyal customers brought side dishes. Lily helped set the table. Sam taped paper decorations everywhere, including the dog. Before dinner, I placed 2 sparkly silver gift bags at the table. One for Lily. One for Sam. Inside were homemade caramel apples, handwritten notes, and tiny keepsakes. Sam gasped like I had handed him treasure. "Mama, these are for us?" I smiled. "Every gift at this table is for you." Lily opened her card slowly. Then she looked at me and asked the question I never expected. "Are we still a real family?" I walked around the table and knelt beside her chair. "Baby," I whispered, "this is what a real family looks like. Not perfect people. Not matching last names. Not giant holiday dinners full of tension. A real family is where you feel safe. Where love is not earned through performance. Where mistakes do not cancel belonging." That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in the kitchen with a slice of salted caramel apple pie and finally allowed myself to grieve fully. Not just my mother. The fantasy of my mother. The fantasy that one day she would wake up transformed and suddenly become soft and apologetic and emotionally safe. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for parents who only exist in imagination. I decided to stop waiting. And strangely, that decision freed me more than forgiveness ever did. Today, Towns and Sweets is thriving. We have a small storefront now on Main Street with pale yellow walls and mismatched chairs Lily picked out herself. Sam still steals caramel when he thinks I'm not looking. Lily works the register on Saturdays and writes little encouraging notes on coffee sleeves for customers. Hope today is gentle with you. You deserve something sweet. Sometimes women cry when they read them. I understand why. Pain recognizes kindness immediately. My father visits once a month. He and Lily play cards quietly in the corner booth. He never pushes. Never assumes. Never asks for more than we freely give. That matters. My mother still has not apologized. Not really. A few attempted messages filtered through relatives over the years. Mostly versions of, families shouldn't stay divided. But division was never the real problem. The problem was what she required in exchange for belonging. I no longer negotiate with that kind of love. Last Thanksgiving, Lily asked me something while we baked pies together. Do you think Grandma misses us? I stopped kneading dough. Children ask impossible questions so gently. I think, I said slowly, Grandma misses having control over us. And maybe she mistakes that feeling for missing us. Lily considered that quietly. Then she nodded in the thoughtful way she does now that she's older. That sounds lonely. It does. And for the first time in my life, I realized something important. I do not hate my mother anymore. I pity her. Because she spent her entire life believing love had to be controlled to survive. Meanwhile, I built a kitchen full of people who stay willingly. That is the difference. The last thing I'll tell you is this. Walking away from your family can feel like walking off the edge of the earth. Especially when they taught you that survival depends on staying. But sometimes the life waiting outside the door is softer than the one inside it. Sometimes peace sounds like children laughing in a tiny kitchen while caramel bubbles on the stove. Sometimes healing looks like a handmade sign in colored pencil that says, "We earned it." And sometimes the bravest thing a mother can do is pick up her children, grab the untouched pie, and leave the table before the lesson becomes permanent. I did that on a cold Thanksgiving night. And it saved us.